era and the Mughal era, the last 600 years of subversion and perhaps a lot of culling of the local population on the grounds of religion and religious bigotry. Now, so textbooks, are they finally not distorted? The brutalities, atrocities committed in our Itihaasa not being brushed over or glossed over? Is it as it should be stated? And when it is it upsetting the so-called Distorians? Now we'll be joined by a very special guest very soon here on the Right Stand, and we'll hear it from him. But first let's take a look at what the NCERT revision for class 8 actually says about the atrocities of the Delhi Sultanate. Now, because it's broken into parts, grade 7 has 2 parts, grade 8 has 2 parts. Now, this is the first part of grade 8. The next part should be out latter half of this year, ahead of their second term in the curricular year. Alauddin Khilji and Malik Kafur destroyed Hindu centers such as Srirangam, Madurai, Chidambaram and Rameshwaram. Multiple recorded attacks on Buddhist, Jain and Hindu temples during the Delhi Sultanate. So it was not necessarily, as was claimed by the so-called quote-unquote Distorians of the past in our education curriculum, that it was for political power. There was religious bigotry underlined. The underlying thought was pan-Islam, to convert people and bring them to the fold of Islam via the power of the sword. Was this an intent under certain rulers and in the Sultanate, in the period of the Delhi Sultanate? What do the revised books say? Destruction of non-Muslim sites motivated not just by plunder but also iconoclasm. Jizya tax was a source of humiliation and social incentive for religious conversion. Babur was a ruthless conqueror who slaughtered millions across India. Babur used to take pride in erecting towers of skulls to highlight conquests. Akbar's reign was a blend of brutality and tolerance. Akbar attacked Chittorgarh fort and ordered massacre of 30,000 civilians. This is a fact. He was just 25 at that time, but it is a fact. Aurangzeb ordered demolition of multiple schools and temples. In fact, it is said about Akbar, and that's what is mentioned based on proof, that he collected the threads, the sacred thread or the Janeyu, and wanted it weighed to see how much it weighed, how many people had been killed. Now, there were rulers like this. Was history whitewashed then? Textbooks often present the Mughals as Indian monarchs who patronized music, culture, built gardens, etc. But rather than foreign conquerors, they were all Temurites, descendants of Temur. The Mughal era often portrayed as a golden age of culture, downplaying the religious tensions, downplaying the fact that a vast majority of this country was subjugated. The 20% that ruled over the remaining 80%. Is that sentiment even there today, that we ruled over, all lorded all over you once, we will do it again? Now that's a different matter, but yes, resistance from Marathas, Sikhs, Rajputs, there were so many flourishing empires. There was 70 years of Maratha Raj between the Mughal and the British in Bharat. Has that been forgotten? Those are questions. Has that been very clearly elucidated now? Because in the previous textbooks, this 70 years is glossed over. Bharat in its independence is just 75 years, viewers. Now, Rajputs is often underplayed or treated as marginal. Destruction of an estimated 50,000 temples. These are all completely absent from the textbooks that viewers, a lot of us, including me, grew up. We never realized all of this. Aurangzeb's temple destruction is glossed over in favor of his administrative skills. Akbar's tolerance is praised, but military aggression at Chittor is rarely mentioned. Aurangzeb's jizya and temple demolitions are framed as political, not religious. Forced conversions are often ignored with the focus on temple patronage and alliances. One act of good towards the non-Muslim community is highlighted to gloss over 100 acts of brutality, cruelty, all furthered by this entire attitude of non-Muslims are infidels. So has that all been corrected, and should it not be corrected? Should we not accept the history as it was in the past? Shah Jahan praised for monuments, but economic strain and military expansion sidelined. Let's go straight across to a very, very special guest who's joining us now. He is Michel Danino. He is the head of the curricular area group for social science within the National Syllabus and Teaching Learning Materials Committee in the NCERT. Michel, namaste. Thank you for your time. You've spent a lot of time here in Bharat. You've also authored a book on the Saraswati River and the civilizations around it. And you've been an advocate of the need to change our textbooks. Can you please tell us what has been attempted with the fresh set of textbooks on our Itihaasa that is now present available for students of grade 7 and 8?
Thank you. I would like to take a few seconds to set the context, first of all. See, we need to remember that in 2020, a new national education policy was published, put together and published by the Ministry of Education. And this was followed in 2023 by a much thicker document called National Curriculum Framework for School Education 2023. Within this context, we have created a number of curricular area groups for each discipline, the old disciplines, but also some new ones, for example, physical education and well-being, vocational education, very important, arts, all of these now are mainstreamed in school education. So our mandate is really, especially in social science, is really to attempt the new pedagogy, new approach that the NEP and the NCFSE recommend and try to outline. And in the case of social science now, and I have to insist that we're not dealing with history alone, we are dealing with the totality of social science. Our textbooks deal with social science and they bring together the old disciplines which were earlier separated, geography, history, economics, political science, and we have added also cultural heritage. So all these are brought together in single textbooks, one at a time. So it's not as if we are publishing a history textbook, we are not. Then what I want to emphasize is that the mandate we work under is really to attempt this new pedagogical approach of engaging the student's mind at every step. That's what the NEP really wants, that the student, in India especially, we know how students have been for now decades, very passive recipients. It's a monologue between the teacher and the student. And the NEP tries to break that paradigm and get the student to become an active participant and in the case of social science, we have survey after survey showing that this is one of the most hated disciplines, if I may use the term, and students actually use the term. That's why I feel free to use it, where they feel bored or they feel totally disconnected. There are others, of course, even mathematics used to be to some extent like that. So therefore, we have a big challenge. How do we engage the student in a way that should captivate his or her interest? And how do we stimulate the thinking processes that should be engaged in such important disciplines that are encompassed in social science? Because after all, we live in a society. What will happen if we don't understand it to begin with? So our real attempt is to make this, society more understandable, though we all know that Indian society is maddeningly complex.
Yes.
We are not going to be able to explain it in 2 or 3 textbooks. That's okay. But still, we have to try to touch certain key ideas, principles.
Okay.
And in grades 6 and 7, if you remember our textbooks, we made an attempt. And we have somewhat gratified that students have come back to us saying that they found the textbook much more interesting than in the past. Why are they more interesting? First of all, there's an element of design. We have a lot of visuals, and some of the visuals actually are partly interactive to the extent that we can do within the limits of a textbook, in the sense that we ask students questions about that visual, and we have a discussion with that. So, and the visuals often replaces a lot of text. Number 2, we are mandated by the NEP to reduce the syllabus very substantially. We all agree, everybody agrees universally, that the school syllabus had become overloaded, bloated, and it's a terrible burden on the average Indian student. So we're trying to reverse that, and in particularly, in history, it is visible because we give much fewer days, far fewer dates than before. We don't engage in detailed discussions about this war, that war, who won and why, and so on. We actually skim over some of them very happily to focus more on what was happening of importance in the society. So this is almost a
Right.
prefatory reply to
Right.
your...
No, I understand. But Michel, if there has to be discussion, then there has to be reference material.
Yeah.
What is the reference material? Because a lot of the reference material is also glossed over. So has that been addressed?
The reference material
And
exists.
is understanding Bharatiya culture, society, and its evolution limited to the last 600 years, or perhaps far greater and far deeper, where culture, society was far more evolved before the colonialist period happened or the invasions happened?
So grade 6 started the adventure, right? We start almost with prehistory in grade 6 very rapidly, of course. And then we come to the, Sindhu Saraswati, Indus Saraswati, Harappan civilization. And I think we did justice to these whole foundations of and then we move on to the Janapadas, Mahajanapadas, Mauryan Empire, etc. So all this is covered in 6 and 7. 7 ends up with the Gupta, 7 part 1, please mind, because 7 and 8, as
Have
you
two parts.
pointed out, have 2 parts. So 7 part 1 ends with the Gupta era. 7 part 2 will make the transition with 8 part 1 in a fairly chronological manner. And then we through all this, we don't forget we are following a multidisciplinary approach. This is one of the great innovations that NEP is insisting upon. We should not have just a narrow historical unfolding and then a narrow set of geographical data and then narrow teaching of economics and all that. We try to intermingle all these disciplines to the extent that we can within, again, the limitations of a printed textbook. If we were dealing only with digital material, it would be a totally different approach, but we can't. Many schools in India don't even have access to internet.
Right.
So therefore, within these limits, what we've tried to do is really to lay the foundations. And it so happens that grade 8 part 1, which came out at least in print earlier this week, deals with what used to be called the medieval period. And we explain why we're not going to use the term medieval too much. Once in a while we do. We're not rigid on terminologies. We actually engage the student in a reflection on terminologies, on what terms mean, and why sometimes we can use them or not. So therefore, this medieval period has always been a touchy issue in school teaching, but also higher education, just as much. And our approach is that we don't discuss what was done before. It's not the concern of today's student. That's more for the critic, the scholar, the historian. But what we do is that we want to tell the student that we're going to do honest history. We're not going to whitewash anything. We're not going to sanitize history. At the same time, we're not going to demonize anyone in particular. We accept that personalities are complex. You were mentioning, I heard you before joining, about Akbar, and yes, we mentioned his early phase, which were quite bloody and quite ruthless. But then there was certainly a change happening in him, and we document that also. If it is about Aurangzeb, we show also some more complex aspect of his personality, and therefore we don't ever say this is good and this is evil or this is black or this is white. That is a simplistic approach which we don't take because it doesn't serve any purpose. But what we want is that, first of all, victims of the past should always be remembered. And any self-respecting nation owes remembrance to the victims of past aggression, whatever period it may be. So we can't do everything. We are, we have a few. We have about 240 pages, perhaps.
Yes.
With all these 5 themes: geography, history, culture, political science, and economics. So therefore, don't expect that we can cover everything, but to try to again identify the strong points. And coming back to history, therefore, we want the student to be aware of what the very, what we've called them the darker chapters of history. And this is true also of the colonial period, which is dealt with in this textbook. And therefore, we have put a note on those darker chapters where we say that we are going to deal with them honestly. There's a lot of gruesome detail that we have not put in. It's not, otherwise it would be very shocking textbook, and that's not our purpose. But at the same time, we want that young Indians should be aware of what happened in the past, because our conviction is that it's only when we are aware, without any spirit of revenge, of bitterness, that we can find the keys to heal the past. When you sweep the past under the carpet, you never heal it. One day it will explode in your face. So therefore, it's a different approach, and it's an approach that has been followed, internationally. If you take Truth and Reconciliation in South Africa, it was truth. First truth, then reconciliation, right? You need the truth first. So in India, we haven't often had the truth. And of course, historians debate what is historical truth, but there are still some facts, which can be interpreted. Yes, it's true. But we've tried to take a very moderate, middle-of-the-road approach where the facts are brought out, but in a way that doesn't provoke, hopefully, any violent feelings in the student.
Right. So you believe, if you say this is being honest with history, so in the past were the textbooks a little dishonest, or did they, was it distorted, Michel? The other part is, there was a thought process which said that ghosts of the past, if unearthed or if stated, could scar the present. But here you say that we need to accept the past so that we can heal, reconcile, and then move forward.
Yes, I can't give you sweeping comments on all the past textbooks, because they were different. Some were good, some were not so good, some definitely sanitized. We would, this is a study which has been done, in fact, by some scholars, where you have to take one textbook and really critique it in depth. So, but by and large, and don't forget, this NCERT textbooks are only one part of the story. You have also state-born textbooks, right?
Yeah.
So I've been living in Tamil Nadu for a long time. I've been living in different parts of India, but what I see is that the state textbooks are generally not better. They are often, suffering from even bigger defects than the NCERT textbooks. So I don't want to make a sweeping statement, but yes, the general tendency has been, let's not discuss uncomfortable things. Let's not, how are students going to feel? How is this community going to feel? That community going to feel? We cannot approach history from such a perspective, because then you are accepting that some communities today should be held responsible or something like that. And we've made it emphatic, both in the note on the darker chapters of history and within the chapter called Reshaping India's Political Map, which deals broadly with the medieval period, that no one in the past should be held responsible. No German today should be held responsible for what Hitler did, Second World War. So this is a fundamental principle which we have stressed very clearly, and I hope that we can now become a little bit more mature in our approach to history, less with fewer passions, and let's approach it together in as honest manner.
Fantastic. As possible. Why weren't you around, and why wasn't this done about 20-25 years ago when, there were so many other generations and who were in school and who would have benefited from a dialogue rather than a monologue, and also complete acceptance of Bharat's history rather than perhaps a very colored view or a little bit of an opaque view. Thank you very much, Michel Danino, for the service that you're rendering towards education, and wish you and your team all the very, very best. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Namaste. So Michel Danino himself was awarded the Padma Shri recently, and like he said, he spent a lot of time in Bharat. So he's French-Indian by nature, but of course an avid historian. So let's move on here and change tack and walk towards what sets up the biggest victory, diplomatic victory post-Op Sindoor for Bharat. Remember a certain Ishaq Dar and the Pakistan machinery which was working hard, fighting hard to stop the mention of this entity, TRF, in the UN statement post Pahalgam and they said this is a localized unit. Now the US Department of State on Friday has officially designated the resistance front a group that claimed responsibility for the horrific April 22 Pahalgam massacre as a foreign terrorist organization or FTO and a specially designated global terrorist SDGT. This significant move marks a major victory for Bharat's persistent global outreach efforts against terrorism and, more importantly, Pak-backed terrorism. So what does this mean for Bharat? One, it boosts Bharat's case against Pakistan at the FATF. The entities linked to TRF face financial restrictions. TRF-linked individuals face immigration bar. US entities barred from providing support, restrictions on defense exports and sales, control over export of dual-use items, and more importantly, to go out and tell the world that Pakistan is a state backer of terrorism. There are no state and non-state actors emerging from Pakistan. It is all state-backed. Now, let us tell you how this is a result of Bharat's persistent efforts. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri met US counterparts and tried to convince them about this. MP's delegation led by Dr. Shashi Tharoor met US officials. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar visited the US ahead of the Quad meet, and this was again brought up. Jaishankar briefed Marco Rubio on Pahalgam and underlined the linkages. This was highlighted, exposed TRF Lashkar links to US officials. Saifullah Kasuri and some of the others, it was very clearly mentioned and the link was established. India briefed UNSC on TRF's role in the Pahalgam attack to counter the Pak narrative. So that was a short, momentous victory for Pakistan. This is the long-term goal and the big win that Bharat has now achieved. What is TRF and why was TRF formed? Now, it's an offshoot of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, responsible for attacks on civilians, responsible for attacks on forces, attacks in Jammu and Kashmir. After the abrogation of Article 370, they came into existence somewhere late September, early October, if my memory serves me right. So just about 30 to 40 days after the abrogation of Article 370 happened. Who is behind the TRF? Formed in Pakistan, supported by Pakistan military establishment, but it was renamed to show that this is homegrown, local. The word resistance and front, that's how it was carved out. But it all emanated from Pakistan. The US move gives Bharat a push to greylist Pakistan in the FATF. Bharat has sent another letter to the FATF and is expecting action. The push is for greylisting Pakistan. It is the fourth letter to the FATFs that's been sent, and perhaps the expected action is holding Pakistan accountable for terror. Let's go straight across to Shri Shashank Mani Tripathi, Lok Sabha MP from Deoria in Uttar Pradesh, but he is also part of the parliamentary panel, the government delegation that visited the US under the leadership of Dr. Tharoor. Namaste, Shashank Mani ji. Thank you for your time. You were part of the delegation that went to the US. So my first question is, how significant is the American state's designation of the TRF as an FTO?
I think this is a very, very right move from the United States of America, which is a long-time strategic partner of India in the fight for democracy and the fight against terrorism. And therefore, them declaring the TRF as an organization which is a known terrorist structure, which is a face for Lashkar-e-Taiba, I think this is something which is very auspicious. We believe that the Pahalgam attacks were made in a very merciless fashion by this organization. They had put out a tweet and they had claimed responsibility, which under Pakistani pressure was removed after 24 hours. But this is a vindication of the stand of India that the war against terrorism will find two largest democracies collaborating. I think I thank the administration of the United States of America for doing this. And I think this is a big victory, not just for India, but the global fight against terrorism.
But let me ask you, Shashank Mani ji, did you specifically, as member of the entire parliamentary panel and this delegation that went to the US, make a specific request and stress upon consideration of TRF and designation as a terrorist organization?
When we were in the United States, as you know, under Dr. Shashi Tharoorji's chairmanship, a delegation of about 7 MPs and 1 ex-ambassador had pressed this point that terrorism is nobody's friend. We had met many senators, the India caucus, we had met the Foreign Affairs Committee, we had met the Foreign Ministry, and we'd also met with the Vice President of America, J.D. Vance. And at every forum, we had emphasized this fact that the TRF had taken credit and thereafter disavowed it under pressure. They are the real culprits. They are a face of the new terrorist organizations. And I'm very happy that a few months later, this has been ratified by the US administration. I think this is a big victory, not just for our administration, for Prime Minister Modi, Jai Shankar ji, but also the multi-party delegation and its importance to this worldwide fight. And our plea that terrorism is nobody's friend, it is everyone's enemy, has been accepted by the United States. And this is a big movement against worldwide terrorism, especially to those who perpetrated the Pahalgam attack.
I must say, we see you in those pictures there, and you wearing the dhoti had got a lot of attention, and everybody wanted to understand that, and they appreciated it also. You're representing Bharat's culture so ably. But coming back to this subject, terrorism is nobody's friend, you said, but Pakistan is a state sponsor of terrorism. Will this move help Bharat prove this to the world?
Pakistan has been a known sponsor of terror since the time that they knew that they cannot best us in conventional warfare. This story goes 37 years back. And our plea has always been that Pakistan sometimes says that these terrorist camps are independent of their army and independent of their administration. But we have always said that if you have the will, you can stop the camps at, let's say, Bawalpur or Muridke. This has gone unheard of till now. And therefore, this global pressure against Pakistan, which, as you know, was also in some ways indicted when Osama bin Laden was found just a kilometer and a half from essentially the National Defense Academy of Pakistan, Abbottabad. I think, therefore, this message from the United States of America that terrorism and fronts of terrorism like the TRF will be called out is a big movement for something that we have been telling Pakistan for the last many years.
My final question, Shashank Mani Tripathi ji. Should Bharat now redouble its efforts, A, to ensure that FATF greylists Pakistan again, and B, to ensure the world brands Pakistan as a state sponsor of terrorism, as a terrorist state?
Well, there is a long history of this. If you look at what has happened when the handlers of from the Pakistan army were caught speaking to those who attacked 26/11, the Taj Hotel. There were many other areas where we found that this kind of link between Pakistan-sponsored terrorism and the state of Pakistan was there. Of course, Pakistan does all it can to make sure that that link is not visible. For instance, when we saw that the Pakistani delegation had also arrived in Washington, D.C. shortly after we had arrived there, they were also crying wolf by saying that Pakistan has been at the receiving end of terror, which is absolutely wrong. They can only be at the receiving end of terror if they are perpetrating terror in other nations, including India and a few other places, and globally as well. So it's about time that with this very important announcement, Pakistan realizes its mistake, that when you rear up vipers in your backyard, then don't expect it to, how shall I say, only strike your neighbors. They can sometimes bite you as well. I think, therefore, they have to take a root and branch surgery of terror. This will be victory for Pakistan also. Pakistan also we wish well. But if they continue to harbor terrorists on their soil, then this kind of attack on themselves also will happen, and the world will always have this fear of Pakistan, which we don't want. So we request them to take down these terror camps, and this pressure from the United States will be a big movement in that direction.
Will they change and mend their ways? We'll have to wait and watch. Otherwise, we'll have to redouble our efforts. Shashank Mani Tripathi ji, thank you for your time. Namaste. We got more news coming through. CNN News 18 mega exclusive. Manoj Kumar Gupta getting us these details. The US State Department's designation process is more stringent and technical, viewers, than the UN or the UNSC itself. The US system is more for enforcement and the UN process is more diplomatic and political. The designation of a foreign terrorist organization or FTO by the US is very technical and complex. The UN process lacks judicial transparency and depends more on the member state submissions. Now, this was repeatedly stalled by China and Pakistan to block or perhaps weaken the grips of sanctions against proxy terror groups like the Lashkar-e-Taiba and its offshoots like the TRF. The US State Department follows stringent legal evidentiary means and goes by procedural requirements under the US law. So how was TRF designated a foreign terror organization? This process that was followed by the US. The CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the DIA and partner foreign intelligence services provide classified information and they are vetted in all technical parameters. The criteria include actual acts of terrorism, capacity and intent, threat to US nationals or national security. The Bureau of Counterterrorism, State Department, prepares a detailed report. Later, this is reviewed by the Justice Department, Treasury Department, Homeland Security. All ensure the group meets the strict legal threshold, especially for due process if US-based individuals and entities are involved. 7 days prior, the US Congress is confidentially notified, and after the period, the designation is formally published in the Federal Register. So this is a very, very big achievement for Bharat, because if Bharat has been able to convince the US State Department, the government there, its agencies and also the Senate and Parliament, then that's a big, big win for Bharat compared to what has happened at the UNSC. Let's go across to our guests and get deep dive into this conversation. Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, former GOC 15 Corps, Indian Army is with us. SP Vaid, former DGP, Jammu and Kashmir, and Anand Ranganathan, author, with us. My namaste and jai hind to everybody. General Dhillon, I must say, khush to bahut honge aap, because this all started, the genesis started in 2019-20 when you were in charge there, GOC 15 Corps.
Good evening, Anand, and good evening to the fellow panelists and your viewers. Yes, first time the term, the resistance force, or TRF as is more popularly known, came up towards the last quarter of 2019, sometime after abrogation of Article 370, when I was a Corps Commander in Kashmir. This was an online term at that time. There was no physical presence on ground, there was no physical cadre on ground, and there was no physical activity of this so-called group on ground. All the activities of Lashkar-e-Toiba were covered by this group by taking responsibilities online only. And slowly and slowly this became more prominent, and now after Pahalgam, as you said in your introduction, TRF claimed responsibility, and after 24 hours or so, they said we have carried out an internal audit. Imagine a terrorist organization carrying out an internal audit, and then they're saying, oh sorry, we didn't do it. In our audit report, it comes out that we didn't do Pahalgam. That is because Pakistanis probably gave them two on the backside, and they were told to disown that thing because pressure was building. So this organization started as an online organization, continues to be front of Lashkar-e-Toiba, and the word, as you said, the resistance force. The words are chosen very correctly so that the Western media and the Western world understands it as an indigenous resistance, and they are using some sort of a force against the occupation or whatever they call them. So similarly, Jaish-e-Mohammed has the People's Fascist Front. So all these works, because Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, the funds were frozen, so these names were there. It's a big victory, it's a big day, big efforts, especially when it comes from US and not from UN, because UN calling anyone anything doesn't have any effect on ground. But the US has something. But again, I always say we have to fight our own battles. Nobody will come and do a dirty job for us. US very well balances the equation in this part of the world. They call Asim Munir for lunch and they declare TRF as a terrorist organization. Earlier they had FATF grey list, and then they removed them from FATF grey list when they wanted their bases and airspace. So we have to fight our own battles, and this is not the end of it. Yesterday it was Lashkar-e-Toiba, today it is TRF, tomorrow they will come out with some new name. The actions, the terrorist acts of Lashkar-e-Toiba, fully backed and owned by Pakistani deep state, will continue, because Pakistan is not going to give up this unless the whole infrastructure on ground is carried out, part of which was done during Operation Sindoor. I think it is the early days to call it a victory.
One of the big aspects is that if there needs to be an economic strangulation of these elements, there has to be some level of sanctions. Now, UN State Department recognizing this, does that give us a big boost at FATF? We'll deliberate on that. But SP Vaid Sahab, my memory is a little foggy, but if I remember, Zakir Musa was neutralized sometime in May 2019. Around the time, just even before that, when he was gathering steam and there was affiliation of Al-Qaeda and all of that, but there was this talk of these calibrations, renaming. Perhaps it surfaced and they gave it a shape post abrogation of 370. But was this already in the works at that time, that there will be different fronts on ground which will be created, which will look homogeneous and indigenous rather than being foreign terrorists or FTs?
Namaskar Anand ji, and namaskar to my co-panelists, Dr. Ranganathan and General Saab, General Dilo. This was, in fact, I would say Pakistan was already toying with this idea, and their strategies to disown the linkages between Pakistan. So a name like this, Resistance Front, was coined to just give it a local flavor, so that people across the world understand that Pakistan has nothing to do with it. It is all local Kashmiri boys. In fact, in this organization, if you see the structure, I think more than 80 to 90% are Pakistanis, and they are all foreign terrorists. It's hardly Kashmiri boys. Local, the OGW network is being used, and one odd people in each group. I think if you take Kashmir, Delhi or Jammu region, very few people are local Kashmiri boys. It's mostly Pakistan based, and some of them are being headed by Pakistan Army commandos, the Pakistan Army regulars. So as you said, they were actually tying up with this these renaming, as General Saab was mentioning. General Dilo, they renamed both Lashkar and Jaish also, just to give a pretense to the world that Pakistan has nothing to do with it, all being done by local boys of Kashmir, which is not true. In fact, I would say yesterday's listing of this by US actually is the victory of the truth, and the Pakistan's, the lies of Pakistan have been exposed. It's a great victory for India's diplomatic effort. Whatever delegation we send, I was listening to the Honorable Member Parliament also. I think Dr. Shashi Tharoor led delegation did a tremendous job, and Dr. S. Jaishankar's team also deserves kudos. I think it's a huge victory for Modi government that TRF has been listed. It clearly, actually, the truth has prevailed, or Pakistan's lies have been exposed.
Yeah, anybody and everybody who's now found supporting this lot or this entity then comes directly under the scrutiny of a terror backer or terrorist activity or backing terrorist activity. So that's a huge win. Dr. Ranganathan, your thoughts? Thank you for your patience.
Not at all. Good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists, both of whom I absolutely are not only experts, they are heroes, and they are heroes for me. So anything I say, please do not construe it as being patronizing at all. You are the real experts. I just speak as a common man. Couple of things out here, Anand. While I do agree with all the points that all three of you have made, it is a diplomatic victory, no doubt about it. But I want to present the common man's perspective, a common man who's an Indian perspective. I believe, I want to make a couple of points. Number one, I think we are missing the woods for the trees for two obvious reasons. One is that, as Kissinger, the old rogue, said, to be America's foe is dangerous, but to be America's friend is fatal. I mean, I would trust America less than I would trust Dracula at a blood donation camp. As General Saab correctly said, during the time and immediately after Operation Sindoor, they were inviting the architect of the man who perpetrated the Pahalgam attack for lunch at White House. So I don't trust them at all. Now let me come to what America has signified out here, or the TRF. The reason why I say we're missing the woods for the trees is that has America designated Pakistan as a terror state? The answer is no. The problem is Pakistan is a terror state. You can designate 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 100 organizations in Pakistan. But as long as Pakistan exists, these organizations, even though direct funding might be cut off, they would get the same amount, perhaps even more now, because they would play the victim card through proxy NGOs. I take the example very quickly of Hamas. Hamas was designated a terror organization by America on 8th October 1997. Did it at all stop Hamas from perpetrating terror attacks in Israel? No. In fact, the October 2023 attack, Hamas directly gained $450 million from Iran. So the point is, while it is good, I would agree in a limited way that it is a definite diplomatic victory for us. I think it is a drop in the ocean.
It is a drop in the ocean, but boond boond sagar banta hai, sir. We have to go step by step, inch by inch. That's how it is. And perhaps the Americans also are keeping their friends close and their enemies closer, in terms of trying to keep Pakistan very close to their chest and not let it drift away anywhere else. Now, there's just some more information before I circle back to our guests again. The Pakistan government's open support for the Lashkar and TRF. That also now stands proven. Pak Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar actively enabled terror via diplomatic shield. Dar personally intervened during the UNSC closed-door session. He sought the removal of the resistance front from the UNSC draft statement. He claimed a lack of verified attribution despite TRF's own public claim and forensic links to Lashkar. He pressurized the OIC and China within the Security Council to block any reference to LED proxies. Framed the Pahalgam attack as a reaction to state repression in Kashmir rather than a terror act. The UNSC draft condemnation naming TRF was altered with Pakistan support. Ishaq Dar publicly spoke about having TRF's name struck out. He wanted the world to ignore digital and human intel linking the group to Lashkar's infrastructure, provided ideological cover, diplomatic protection and sanction evasion for the TRF. He facilitated continued recruitment, fundraising and argued that naming TRF would politicize the council. He said we shouldn't delegitimize indigenous resistance by TRF and was indirectly legitimizing terrorist violence in our country. So, should this not now be turned around to the world and say who was batting for these proxies, General Dhillon? And now, how will we, wo kehte hain na, nakel kasenge, how will we do that?
The whole world knows Pakistan is doing it. Pakistan is behind it. Pakistan is the main player, as Dr. Ranganathan also said, and Mr. Vaid also said. Everyone knows it. But you see, in this international diplomacy or international relationship, when they were trying to sort out Iran, and if that war was to continue, and they had to open another front from the eastern side against Iran, so that their air defense gets bifurcated on two fronts, they needed Pakistan's air bases, they needed Pakistan's airspace. At that time, they were mollycoddling with Asim Munir, calling him for lunch. Now that chapter is closed, and now they want to sell their defense hardware, and now they are trying to say that, okay, TRF is a banned organization. What does it actually mean on ground? Have they named Pakistan? Has anything proven that TRF operates from Pakistan and they have accepted it? TRF is a name, जैसे हम हिंदी में बोलते हैं, हवा में एक नाम है. Lashkar-e-Toiba has assets on ground in Pakistan. Lashkar-e-Toiba has leadership on ground in Pakistan. So they have not linked Pakistan to TRF, and just saying that TRF is banned, actually it means nothing. It only means like some people in India will feel very nice about it, and I'll say it again, it's a big diplomatic effort and big diplomatic win to start with. But on ground, they will come out with some XYZ name tomorrow.
Well,
they will continue the same game.
That's the international diplomatic game. The point is, Lashkar has been named, it's a proscribed organization. TRF has been named, it's a proscribed organization. TRF is linked to Lashkar, and Lashkar's headquarters are in Muridke in Pakistan. So the link to Pakistan is established. But the diplomatic parlance will say, yes, Lashkar is proscribed, TRF is proscribed, but how does it impact the Pakistan state? Perhaps that's where, General Dhillon, the world can go back to those visuals where a known Lashkar operative was leading the funeral prayers with the Pakistani army in attendance.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
General Dhillon, and that's where we go back and say, hey, flashback, look at this. And what the Pakistani generals at that time spoke about that guy who's proscribed by the US themselves.
Anand, absolutely agree with you. But the point which I am making is, LET or Lashkar-e-Toiba was doing all these things, terrorist activities inside India. Did anyone other than India itself hit LET? We did it because we were feeling hurt. We were feeling the pinch. We hit Muridke. We hit Bahawalpur. So your battles only you will have to fight. You cannot, rather you means India cannot depend on anyone else to come and do our dirty business or clear our dirty work. We have to fight. We have to be so strong that people say, yes, you have the right to retaliate, and you retaliated. Very good. We stand by you. We are not condemning it.
Right.
Ultimately, we have to stand on our 2 feet. We are 1/6 of the world.
Ji.
We are the largest democracy. We are a military
Absolutely,
might.
sir.
So all these things, and we are a nation to reckon with. 4th largest economy, going to be 3rd. So we must understand very clearly, we have to build our own assets, we have to build our own strength, and we have to fight our own battles.
Yeah, I agree.
Nobody is going to do it. These things will keep happening. They're okay, they're feel-good factors. Agreed.
Yeah.
But we must be realistic and understand this point.
We need a few more unknown gunmen, and we need a few more. We also need to distribute a few more BrahMos missiles to the Pakistanis for free. Perhaps that is the case. But the fact is that they are, at least in geopolitics, if somebody is designated kachra and then we start cleaning that out, we have to say, "Acha, aap hi ne kachra bola, hum safai kar rahe hain." So that's also a diplomatic and shield that enables Bharat to be able to take concrete action against these elements now, because geopolitically it matters how other nations define and see these elements, and somewhere the narrative is also driven by the West, and the West is driven largely by the Americans. And we have to accept that at the moment. Should that change? Yes, it should. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, before I bring in another dimension. Ji.
Yes, very quickly, what General Saab is saying is absolutely true, except that I might change the tense a little bit when he says we have to do this. I think we have shown that we have done it. That's the difference. 15 years ago, believe me, had we decided as a country to bomb mainland Pakistan, there would have been a Security Council resolution forbidding us to do so. In fact, as you know, in the wake of 26/11, we wanted to bomb the terror hideouts. We were forbidden to do so. So things are changed. We know we are all alone. We know every country is hypocritical. We know America cannot be trusted, and yet we are bombing the living daylights out of Pakistan, which is great. So that is what I believe.
Yeah, earlier the hands were tied behind the back. Even if you wanted to punch, you couldn't. अब हाथ खुल गए हैं. So अब then the हाथ दिखने भी लगेंगे. So that it's a gradual phase, but it's a tough one, and we got to move that very fast. Climb that ladder as fast as we climb the escalation ladder between the 7th and the 9th of May. But just one more development. You talked about the boons. What is happening? Drop in the ocean. Perhaps this is indicative of the next drop, viewers. CNN News 18 exclusive. Balochistan government has issued new directives for passengers and transporters. First, deployment of armed guards on all vehicles, installation of tracking systems on all vehicles, installation of alarms and panic buttons on all vehicles, installation of wireless security cameras also. These steps are non-negotiable to protect lives and property of civilians, the Baloch government says. This is the Pak-backed or the current civilian government-backed Baloch government, not the Baloch people elected Baloch government. Failure to comply with result in strict legal action. All public transport operators must submit full compliance reports. Now, this is because 20 Pakistani security personnel were killed in just 24 hours in Balochistan. Baloch rebels and secessionists, those who want an independent, free Balochistan, are now upping the ante. They ambushed military checkposts in Balochistan, serving major among the deceased. And a new wave of unrest is now erupting in Balochistan. Armed attacks were carried out on security forces in Awaran, Quetta and Kalat districts of Balochistan. Recent attacks by Baloch freedom fighters resulting in the death of 20 personnel, including a senior officer, Major Rab Nawaz, is also among the dead. According to sources, Baloch independence activists are suspected of being involved in these attacks. However, no group has claimed responsibility for these attacks yet. Security forces have launched an operation in the affected areas and a search for the attackers is underway. The situation is tense while there is intense fear and panic among the people. SP Vaidji, if a nation is on the verge of balkanization, we just need to ensure that its funds are crippled. A terror state.
Absolutely, Anand. Absolutely, Anand. See, things are very, very serious in Balochistan. I think much of the Pakistan Army's RIT doesn't run there. Only yesterday's incident which you were mentioning, I am told 27 Pakistan Army personnel, and this is the first time I saw ISPR admitting it. Normally, if you recall, even when hijacking of the train took place, the ISPR just downplayed it so brutally it did not admit. We had, I think, Pakistan Army had huge death toll in that hijacking of the train. Here, 27 plus, including including Pakistan Army major, an officer. So that is the condition of Pakistan Army. It cannot. You see the road. Most of the roads are almost in their occupation, and Pakistan Army is not able to move. Now, this circular which you were reading shows the precarious condition of the security situation there. I remember that notorious speech of Pakistan, the then Pakistan Army chief, now the field marshal, and likely to be the next president of Pakistan. He said 1,500 people cannot take away Balochistan from mighty Pakistan Army. Today, Pakistan Army, look at the condition of the Pakistan Army. I think the day these Baloch fighters take or attack or take occupation of, take control of the Quetta Corps headquarters, the Pakistan Army's game is over. And I don't foresee that Pakistan Army will be able to then have a control. I think very soon you will see these fighters attacking the Quetta Corps headquarters.
I think one of the other things that is also happening, General Dhillon, and you can throw light on it, is that the Baloch seem to be organizing within themselves too. The tribes which were fractured in the past are getting together, be it the Baloch, the Buktis. Now they're all coming together. They seem to be unifying under the one common leader. And there seems to be a certain recalibration in terms of their training strategy, integrated. It's no longer very, very guerrilla and raw. Have you seen that shape that the rebels or the freedom fighters are taking?
Yes, Anand, the Baloch freedom fighters, I'll just go 2-3 things. One is nothing succeeds like success. When you achieve success in your operations against a regular military, that is Pakistan Army, then you feel that yes, you have achieved success. And second is, when the enemy is stronger than you, then you unite together. And Balochis are very proud people. They are a very proud people. All these Buktis and other subcastes or the sub-tribes are now united, and they firstly resolve the problem with Pakistan Army, and then whatever is some issues between the tribes, they can resolve. But I'm going to make a bigger point. See, why Pakistan is the darling of the West? Pakistan is the darling of the West because of its geostrategic location.
Yes.
It's access to Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean so that the ships can come in. They're sitting on the Strait of Hormuz mouth. They are taking care of the eastern flank of Iran. They are access to the Central Asian Republic. Now, if the Balochistan becomes an independent country, access from Saudi Arabian Sea would restrict only to Sindh. The Strait of Hormuz would be then under the nose of Balochistan. Complete eastern border of Iran would then be looked after by Balochistan, the new country, as also the access to the Central Asian Republic. Then the relevance of Pakistan in the eyes of the West will go down. And that is the day West will genuinely start whipping Pakistan and start playing the same game with Balochistan. So we have to understand it's a very, very deep game being played out there. And Balochistan's independence is in the interest of the region, it's in the interest of India, and it's in the interest of everyone.
And bulk of the rare earth minerals, etc., 40%
Absolutely.
of the is all. Everybody's looking at the rare earth. They're all looking at oil and petroleum and gas and all these reserves which are there, untapped reserves. And the Baloch, if they organize themselves, they can offer it to the highest bidder at the cost, the fact that they get their freedom and they also get a fair share of this pie because it's their resources. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, final word. I got a last minute. Bukti, Murri, Rind, Lashari, Mengal and the Zeri. These are the main tribes there. Gee, go ahead please.
Yeah, very, very quickly, I think I just want to, as a common man again, not an expert, talk about very briefly what role India can play. I don't think personally India should play any role at all. We should watch it. Let me do this. Anand, if you can see me, let me do this. I don't think India should play any role. yes, we should just watch it from the sidelines, particularly because the role we played in the liberation of Bangladesh. Look what the Bangladeshis themselves are giving it back to us. So I mean, this is something where no love is lost between people that you want to help. Secondly,
Right.
might lose the moral high ground when we openly display our allegiance or our support to Balochistan. So
Ji.
I think we should watch the quote unquote fun from the sidelines.
Yeah, we can always look at there and say, all right, well played, continue on. So we can join the chorus from the sidelines and, like you said, with the wink wink on there. But the Baloch and the Bangladeshi are not the same. They're very different. And their attitude is very different. They never voted for Pakistan for partition, but the call for partition emanated from today's Bangladesh. So there is a big difference there. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Always a pleasure speaking with all of you. Thank you. Winding up the right stand on that. Thanks for watching.
Co-presented by. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
और आज उसकी सफलता पूरी दुनिया देख रही है। साथियों, बिहार के पास न सामर्थ्य की कमी है और न ही संसाधन की। आज बिहार के संसाधन बिहार की प्रगति का माध्यम बन रहे हैं। आप देखिए, एनडीए सरकार के प्रयासों के बाद से ही मखाना की कीमतें कितनी बढ़ी हैं, क्योंकि हमने यहां के मखाना किसानों को बड़े बाजार से जोड़ा। हम मखाना बोर्ड का गठन कर रहे हैं। यहां केला, लीची, मरचा चावल, कटारनी चावल, जर्दालू आम, मगही पान, अभी ऐसे कितने ही उत्पाद और हैं जो बिहार के किसानों को, बिहार के युवाओं को दुनिया भर के मार्केट से जोड़ेंगे। भाइयों बहनों, किसानों के उत्पाद और उनकी आय को बढ़ाना हमारी प्राथमिकता है। पीएम किसान सम्मान निधि योजना के तहत अब तक करीब 3.5 लाख करोड़ रुपया किसानों को दिए गए हैं। यहां अकेले मोतीहारी में ही 5 लाख से ज्यादा किसानों को 1,500 करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा मिले हैं। साथियों, न हम नारों तक अटकते हैं, न हम वादों तक सिमटते हैं, हम तो काम करके दिखाते हैं। जब हम कहते हैं कि हम पिछड़ों, अति पिछड़ों के लिए निरंतर काम कर रहे हैं, तो ये हमारी नीतियों में भी, निर्णयों में भी नजर आता है। एनडीए सरकार का तो मिशन ही है हर पिछड़े को प्राथमिकता, हर पिछड़े को प्राथमिकता, चाहे पिछड़ा क्षेत्र हो या पिछड़ा वर्ग हो, हमारी सरकार की वो पहली प्राथमिकता